Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls her age. While her classmates spent their weekends at shopping malls and sleepovers, she could be found at the local shooting range with her grandfather, learning the fundamentals of marksmanship. Her grandfather, a World War II veteran, had taught her that precision shooting was both an art and a science, requiring patience, discipline, and unwavering focus. Growing up in a small Texas town, Sarah faced constant skepticism about her unusual hobby. Her high school peers couldn't understand why she preferred spending time with rifles instead of makeup and fashion magazines. Even her own family sometimes questioned her dedication to shooting sports, wondering if she was missing out on a normal teenage experience. But Sarah never wavered in her passion. When she turned 18, Sarah made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She walked into the Marine Corps recruiting office and announced her intention to enlist. The recruiter, Staff Sergeant Johnson, initially assumed she was there to ask questions for a boyfriend or brother. When he realized she was serious about joining herself, his expression shifted from surprise to barely concealed doubt. The weeks leading up to basic training were filled with well-meaning advice from family and friends. Her mother worried constantly about her decision, while her father struggled to understand why his daughter wanted to enter such a traditionally male-dominated field. Sarah's younger brother Jake was perhaps the most supportive, having witnessed firsthand her incredible shooting abilities during their weekend range sessions. Sarah had always been meticulous about her equipment and appearance. She took pride in maintaining her rifles with obsessive care, ensuring every component was clean and properly adjusted. This attention to detail extended to her personal style as well. She had customized her personal rifle with pink accents, not as a fashion statement, but because she genuinely loved the color and wanted her equipment to reflect her personality. The night before leaving for Parris Island, Sarah packed her personal shooting gear, including her beloved rifle with its distinctive pink modifications. She had spent months researching Marine Corps regulations and confirmed that recruits could bring personal firearms for use during advanced training phases, provided they met specific requirements and received proper authorization. As her bus pulled away from the small Texas town she had called home for 18 years, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She understood that the next 13 weeks would test every aspect of her physical and mental strength. What she didn't anticipate was how much resistance she would face from fellow recruits and even some instructors who questioned whether women belonged in combat roles. The journey to South Carolina took nearly 12 hours, giving Sarah plenty of time to reflect on her decision and mentally prepare for the challenges ahead. She had read countless books about Marine Corps training and knew that the experience would push her beyond limits she never knew existed. But she also knew that her years of shooting experience had given her a unique advantage that few recruits possessed. During the long bus ride, Sarah struck up conversations with other recruits heading to the same destination. Most were young men from various backgrounds, all sharing the common goal of earning the title of United States Marine. Some were friendly and curious about her background, while others seemed skeptical about her presence among their ranks. One recruit, Marcus Thompson from Detroit, expressed genuine interest in Sarah's shooting experience. He had grown up in an urban environment with limited exposure to firearms and was nervous about the marksmanship requirements of basic training. Sarah found herself offering encouragement and basic tips, sharing some of the wisdom her grandfather had passed down to her over the years. Another recruit, Tyler Harrison from Alabama, made several comments that revealed his doubts about women serving in combat roles. While not openly hostile, his remarks suggested he believed that military service should remain exclusively male. Sarah chose not to engage in arguments, knowing that her performance would speak louder than any words she could offer in response. As the bus approached Parris Island, Sarah could see the imposing gates and buildings that would become her new home for the next 3 months. The sight filled her with determination rather than fear. She had spent years preparing for this moment, both physically and mentally, and she was ready to prove that her gender did not define her capabilities. The reception process at Parris Island was deliberately overwhelming and chaotic. Drill instructors shouted commands while recruits scrambled to follow instructions and organize their belongings. During the initial equipment inspection, Sarah's personal rifle drew immediate attention from the staff. The pink accent stood out dramatically against the standard military colors surrounding them. Drill instructor Staff Sergeant Rodriguez examined the weapon carefully, checking its specifications against Marine Corps standards. While he maintained his stern demeanor, Sarah could tell he was impressed by the rifle's quality and her obvious attention to maintenance. However, his approval was not shared by everyone present during the inspection. Several male recruits noticed the pink rifle and began whispering among themselves, some snickering at what they perceived as an inappropriate attempt to feminize military equipment. Sarah ignored their reactions, focusing instead on answering the drill instructor's technical questions about her weapon's capabilities and modifications. The first few weeks of basic training were grueling for all recruits, but Sarah faced additional challenges due to the constant scrutiny of her peers and some instructors. Every mistake she made was magnified and analyzed through the lens of her gender. While her successes were often attributed to luck rather than skill and preparation, during initial marksmanship training, Sarah was careful not to reveal the full extent of her abilities. She had learned from her grandfather that sometimes it was wise to keep your true capabilities hidden until the right moment presented itself. She performed well enough to avoid attention while observing the skills and attitudes of those around her. The other recruits gradually began to form opinions about Sarah. Based on her performance in various training exercises, some recognized her competence and began treating her as an equal member of their platoon. Others remained skeptical, waiting for her to fail and prove their preconceptions correct. As the weeks progressed, Sarah began to understand that earning respect in this environment would require more than just meeting the same standards as her male counterparts. She would need to exceed expectations consistently and demonstrate that her presence made the entire unit stronger rather than weaker. The stage was being set for a defining moment that would change how everyone viewed both Sarah and her distinctive pink rifle. Little did anyone know that her years of patient practice and her grandfather's wisdom would soon combine to create a shot that would become legendary among Marine Corps marksmanship instructors. The fourth week of basic training brought the first official marksmanship evaluation, and Sarah could feel the weight of expectations bearing down on her. During morning formation, Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Rodriguez announced that recruits would be tested on their shooting fundamentals using standard Marine Corps rifles before being allowed to use any personal weapons. Sarah's platoon marched to the rifle, range in perfect formation, their boots creating a rhythmic cadence on the asphalt. The morning air was crisp and still, perfect conditions for shooting. As they approached the firing line, Sarah noticed several senior instructors observing from the tower, including the legendary gunnery sergeant Patricia Williams, the highest-ranking female marksmanship instructor on the base. The initial shooting test required recruits to engage targets at distances ranging from 200 to 500 meters using iron sights. Sarah watched as her fellow recruits took their turns, noting their techniques and results. Many struggled with the fundamentals of breath control and trigger squeeze, concepts that had become second nature to her through years of practice. When Tyler Harrison stepped up to the firing line, he made a point of looking back at Sarah with a confident smirk. He had been vocal about his hunting experience back home in Alabama, and clearly expected to outperform the female recruit who carried a pink rifle. His first few shots hit the target consistently, and he nodded with satisfaction as the range safety officer called out his scores. Marcus Thompson, the recruit from Detroit, approached his turn with visible nervousness. His urban background had provided little opportunity for firearms training, and his hands trembled slightly as he took his shooting position. Sarah found herself silently rooting for him, remembering their conversation on the bus about overcoming disadvantages through determination and practice. As each recruit completed their turn, Sarah studied the targets through binoculars, analyzing shot patterns and identifying common mistakes. She noticed that most recruits were pulling their shots to the right due to improper trigger control, a problem her grandfather had helped her overcome years earlier through patient repetition and dry-fire practice. Finally, Sarah's name was called, and she approached the firing line with calm confidence. The standard Marine Corps rifle felt foreign in her hands after years of using her custom weapon, but she quickly adjusted to its weight and balance. She had trained extensively with various firearms to ensure she could adapt to any situation. Taking her position in the prone shooting stance, Sarah focused on her breathing and let her muscle memory guide her movements. The familiar routine of sight alignment and trigger control felt natural, despite the unfamiliar weapon. She fired her first shot and immediately knew it was a perfect center hit, based on the rifle's recoil and her sight picture. The range safety officer announced her score through his megaphone, and several recruits turned to look at her with surprise. Her first shot had scored a perfect bullseye, but Sarah showed no emotion as she prepared for her second shot. She had learned from her grandfather that consistency mattered more than any single perfect shot. Shot after shot, Sarah's bullets found their mark with mechanical precision. The range grew quieter as more people noticed her performance, and even the normally stoic drill instructors began paying closer attention to her shooting position and technique. By the time she finished the prescribed course of fire, she had achieved a nearly perfect score. Gunnery Sergeant Williams climbed down from the observation tower and walked over to examine Sarah's target personally. The tight grouping of bullet holes clustered around the center of the bullseye told a clear story of exceptional marksmanship skills. The senior instructor studied the target for several moments before nodding with apparent approval. Tyler Harrison's confident expression had faded as he realized that his own shooting performance, while competent, paled in comparison to what he had just witnessed. Several other recruits who had been skeptical about Sarah's abilities began reassessing their opinions based on this tangible demonstration of her skills. After the formal shooting test concluded, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez announced that qualified recruits could request permission to demonstrate their personal weapons during the afternoon training session. Sarah had been waiting for this opportunity, knowing that her customized rifle would allow her to showcase her true capabilities. The afternoon session attracted a larger audience, including several Marines from other platoons who had heard about the morning's impressive performance. Word traveled quickly in the close-knit environment of Paris Island, and Sarah's shooting had already become a topic of conversation among both recruits and instructors. When Sarah retrieved her pink rifle from the armory, the reaction was immediate and predictable. Laughter and whispered comments rippled through the gathered Marines as they saw the distinctive color scheme that seemed so out of place in the military environment. Some recruits made jokes about toy guns and fashion accessories, clearly unable to take the weapon seriously. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez called for silence and reminded everyone that they were there to evaluate marksmanship skills, not debate equipment aesthetics. However, Sarah could see the skepticism in many faces around her, including some of the observing instructors who seemed to question her judgment in choosing such an unconventional appearance for her rifle. Gunnery Sergeant Williams approached Sarah and asked about the rifle specifications and modifications. Sarah explained the technical details of her weapon, including the precision barrel, custom trigger system, and high-quality optics that she had saved months to purchase. The senior instructor listened carefully, clearly impressed by Sarah's knowledge of her equipment. The afternoon shooting course was more challenging than the morning session, with targets placed at distances up to 800 meters. These longer shots would test not only marksmanship, fundamentals, but also the ability to read wind conditions and make precise adjustments for bullet drop and environmental factors. As Sarah prepared for her demonstration, she could feel the eyes of dozens of Marines focused on her every movement. The pink rifle that had drawn so much laughter and ridicule was about to be put to the ultimate test. She understood that this moment would define how she was perceived for the remainder of her time in the Marine Corps. Taking her position behind the firing line, Sarah began her pre-shot routine with the same methodical approach she had used thousands of times before. She checked her scope settings, analyzed the wind flags positioned along the range, and calculated the adjustments needed for the extended, distance shots she was about to attempt. The laughter and skeptical comments gradually faded as observers recognized the professional competence Sarah displayed in preparing for her shots. Even those who doubted her abilities could see that she approached marksmanship with the serious dedication of an experienced shooter rather than the casual attitude of an amateur. Unknown to the watching Marines, Sarah was about to demonstrate shooting skills that would not only silence the ridicule about her pink rifle, but establish her as one of the most capable marksmen any of them had ever witnessed. The stage was set for a performance that would become legendary in Marine Corps training history. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the rifle range as Sarah settled into her shooting position. The pink rifle that had been the source of so much amusement now lay steady in her hands, its distinctive color seeming almost defiant against the military backdrop. She could hear whispered conversations behind her as Marines placed informal bets on whether the female recruit with the unusual weapon could match her morning performance. Gunnery Sergeant Williams stepped forward to announce the parameters of the extended range shooting demonstration. Targets would be engaged at distances of 600, 700, and 800 meters, well beyond the standard qualification requirements for basic training. These shots would challenge even experienced Marines, and many observers expected to see Sarah struggle with the increased difficulty. Sarah's first target stood 600 meters downrange, a small silhouette that appeared tiny through her rifle scope. She had engaged targets at this distance countless times during weekend shooting sessions with her grandfather, but never under such intense scrutiny. The weight of proving herself pressed down on her shoulders as she began her sight picture alignment. The range fell silent as Sarah controlled her breathing and found her natural respiratory pause. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory, reminding her to squeeze the trigger straight back with steady pressure until the shot broke naturally. The pink rifle bucked gently against her shoulder, and she immediately knew the shot was good based on the perfect sight picture she had maintained through the recoil. The range safety officer used high-powered spotting scopes to evaluate the hit and announced a perfect center strike. A murmur of surprise rippled through the observing Marines, but Sarah remained focused on her next target. She understood that one good shot could be attributed to luck, but consistent performance would demand respect. Tyler Harrison, who had been among the most vocal critics of Sarah's unconventional rifle, watched with growing amazement as she prepared for the 700-meter target. His own shooting experience had never extended beyond 400 meters, and he was beginning to realize that he was witnessing something extraordinary. The casual confidence Sarah displayed suggested that these extended-range shots were routine rather than exceptional for her. Marcus Thompson stood near the rear of the group, studying Sarah's technique with intense concentration. He had struggled with basic marksmanship during the morning session and hoped to learn from observing someone with obviously superior skills. He noticed how Sarah made small adjustments to her scope between shots, compensating for changing wind conditions that most recruits wouldn't even notice. Sarah's second shot at 700 meters was met with even more surprise when the range safety officer again announced a center hit. The mathematical precision of her shooting was becoming impossible to dismiss as mere luck. Several drill instructors began moving closer to get better views of her technique, clearly impressed by what they were witnessing. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez found himself reassessing his initial impressions of the young recruit. He had seen thousands of Marines go through basic training, and Sarah's demonstration of marksmanship skills was among the most impressive he had witnessed. The pink rifle that had initially seemed like a joke was proving to be a precision instrument in capable hands. As Sarah prepared for the 800-meter target, the largest challenge of the demonstration, word had spread throughout the base about the exceptional shooting taking place at the range. Additional Marines arrived to observe, including several sniper-qualified personnel who were curious to see if the rumors about the female recruit's abilities were accurate. The 800-meter target represented a significant increase in difficulty compared to the previous shots. At this distance, environmental factors like wind speed and direction became critical variables that could easily cause a miss even with perfect shooting technique. Sarah spent several minutes studying the wind flags and mirage patterns before making her final scope adjustments. Gunnery Sergeant Williams positioned herself directly behind Sarah to observe her shooting form and technique. As the most experienced female marksman on the base, she was particularly interested in evaluating Sarah's potential for advanced training programs. What she saw impressed her greatly. Sarah displayed the calm focus and technical proficiency of someone with years of serious shooting experience. The range fell completely silent as Sarah settled into her final shooting position. Even the casual conversations among distant Marines stopped as word spread that something special was happening. The pink rifle that had been the subject of ridicule was now the center of intense attention and growing respect. Sarah's breathing slowed to the methodical pattern her grandfather had taught her years earlier. She found her natural point of aim and made microscopic adjustments until her crosshairs settled perfectly on the center of the distant target. The shot would test not only her marksmanship skills but also the quality of her controversial rifle and its custom modifications. The trigger broke cleanly under her finger, and Sarah maintained her sight picture through the recoil to observe the bullet's impact. Through her scope, she could see the small puff of dust kicked up by the bullet's impact, and she knew immediately that the shot was good. The range safety officer confirmed what she already knew. Another perfect center. Hit. The silence that followed was broken by spontaneous applause from several Marines who could no longer contain their amazement at what they had witnessed. 3 consecutive perfect hits at extended ranges represented shooting skills that surpassed many of their instructors. The pink rifle had proven itself to be far more than the fashion statement many had assumed it to be. Tyler Harrison found himself joining the applause despite his earlier skepticism. He had witnessed something that challenged his preconceptions about both female Marines and equipment that didn't conform to traditional military aesthetics. Sarah's performance had earned his respect through undeniable demonstration of superior skills. Marcus Thompson approached Sarah after the demonstration to ask for shooting advice. His earlier nervousness about marksmanship training had been replaced by determination to learn from someone who clearly mastered the fundamentals. Sarah graciously offered to help him during their free time, remembering how her grandfather had patiently shared his knowledge with her. Gunnery Sergeant Williams pulled Sarah aside for a private conversation about her background and training. She was particularly interested in Sarah's potential for advanced programs like the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, which few women had even attempted. Sarah's demonstration had revealed natural talent combined with extensive training that could be developed even further. As the Marines dispersed from the range, conversations focused on the remarkable shooting they had witnessed rather than the unusual color of Sarah's rifle. The weapon that had been the source of laughter and jokes was now recognized as a precision instrument that perfectly matched its owner's exceptional abilities. The events of the afternoon had fundamentally changed how Sarah was perceived by her fellow recruits and instructors. The pink rifle that had made her stand out for the wrong reasons was now a symbol of her unique identity and exceptional capabilities. But this was only the beginning of a journey that would test her skills in ways she had never imagined. News of Sarah's exceptional shooting performance spread throughout Parris Island like wildfire. By evening chow, Marines from other platoons were approaching her with questions about her background and training methods. The pink rifle that had initially marked her as different was now viewed as the signature weapon of one of the most skilled marksmen on the base. Gunnery Sergeant Williams spent her evening reviewing Sarah's training records and discussing her potential with other senior instructors. The demonstration at the rifle range had revealed capabilities that extended far beyond basic Marine Corps requirements, and Williams was determined to ensure that such talent was properly developed and utilized. During the following weeks, Sarah's training routine was quietly modified to include additional marksmanship instruction and specialized courses typically reserved for more advanced Marines. Her drill instructors recognized that her skills could benefit not only her own development, but also serve as an example to inspire other recruits struggling with shooting fundamentals. Tyler Harrison, who had initially been among Sarah's harshest critics, found himself seeking her advice during practice sessions. His pride had been wounded by her superior performance, but his practical nature recognized that learning from her could improve his own chances of success in the Marine Corps. Sarah graciously shared her knowledge, remembering her grandfather's teaching that helping others improve was part of being a good Marine. Marcus Thompson became one of Sarah's most dedicated students during informal training sessions. His urban background had left him with significant disadvantages in marksmanship training, but his determination to overcome these challenges impressed Sarah. She worked patiently with him on breathing techniques and trigger control, gradually helping him build confidence and competence. The other female recruits in Sarah's training company began looking to her as a role model and source of inspiration. Her success in a traditionally male-dominated field proved that women could excel in any aspect of Marine Corps training when they possessed the necessary skills and dedication. Several asked her to share her training methods and mental preparation techniques. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez found himself recommending Sarah for advanced training opportunities that rarely became available to recruits still in basic training. Her exceptional performance had caught the attention of senior officers who were always seeking talented individuals for specialized programs. The pink rifle that had once seemed like a joke was now opening doors that few Marines ever had the chance to walk through. Word of Sarah's abilities eventually reached Colonel James Mitchell, the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School at Quantico. He had heard reports about a female recruit at Parris Island who was demonstrating extraordinary marksmanship skills, and he was curious to learn more about her background and potential for advanced training. As basic training entered its final weeks, Sarah faced increasingly challenging tests designed to evaluate her readiness for graduation. Her shooting skills had been proven beyond any doubt, but the Marine Corps demanded excellence in all areas of training. She threw herself into physical fitness, tactics, and leadership exercises with the same dedication she had always applied to marksmanship. The culminating exercise for Sarah's platoon was a comprehensive field training evolution that would test everything they had learned during their 13 weeks at Paris Island. The scenario involved a simulated combat mission requiring teamwork, tactical thinking, and specialized skills from each team member. Sarah was assigned as the designated marksman for her squad, a role that played to her obvious strengths. During the planning phase of the exercise, Sarah's squad leader, Corporal Jennifer Hayes, asked her to assess the shooting requirements for their mission. The scenario included several long-range engagements that would challenge even experienced Marines, and the success of the entire operation might depend on Sarah's ability to neutralize distant targets with precision shots. Sarah studied the terrain and target locations carefully, calculating distances and identifying potential challenges like wind patterns and concealment requirements. Her tactical analysis impressed the observing instructors, who noted that her understanding of marksmanship extended well beyond simple shooting skills to include the practical application of precision fire in combat situations. The exercise began before dawn, with Sarah's squad moving carefully through unfamiliar terrain toward their objective. She carried her pink rifle along with standard Marine Corps equipment, and the weapon's distinctive appearance had become a source of pride rather than embarrassment. Other recruits now recognized it as a symbol of exceptional capability rather than inappropriate femininity. The first shooting challenge came when Sarah's squad encountered a simulated enemy position at a distance of 650 meters. The targets were partially concealed behind cover, requiring precise shot placement to achieve effective hits. Sarah quickly assessed the situation and identified the best shooting position among the available options. Taking cover behind a fallen log, Sarah extended her rifle's bipod and settled into a stable shooting position. The other members of her squad provided security, while she prepared to engage the distant targets. Through her scope, she could see the simulated enemies moving in and out of concealment, presenting brief windows of opportunity for effective shots. Sarah's first shot struck the primary target with devastating accuracy, demonstrating the tactical application of her marksmanship skills. Her squad leader immediately called for her to engage secondary targets, and Sarah smoothly transitioned between shooting positions to maintain effective fields of fire. Each shot found its mark with the precision that had become her trademark. The observing instructors watched with growing admiration as Sarah seamlessly integrated her shooting abilities with tactical movement and communication. She was not just an exceptional marksman, but a complete Marine who understood how her specialized skills fit into larger mission requirements. Her performance was setting new standards for what could be expected from basic training graduates. As the exercise progressed, additional shooting challenges tested Sarah's ability to engage targets under stress and time pressure. Moving targets, elevated positions, and unfavorable wind conditions all presented obstacles that she overcame with the confidence born of extensive training and natural talent. Her pink rifle proved effective in every scenario the instructors could devise. The final challenge of the exercise required Sarah to make a shot at the maximum effective range of her rifle while supporting her squad's assault on the objective. The target was positioned at 900 meters, significantly beyond the distances she had demonstrated during her earlier range performance. Success would require not only technical skill, but also the mental fortitude to perform under maximum pressure. Sarah studied the target through her scope, calculating the complex adjustments needed for such an extended shot. Wind conditions were challenging, and the target was partially concealed behind natural cover that left only a small area vulnerable to effective fire. The shot would test the absolute limits of both her abilities and her equipment. Her squad members watched nervously as Sarah made final adjustments to her scope and settled into her shooting position. The success of their mission depended on her ability to neutralize this distant threat, and everyone understood that failure would compromise the entire operation. The weight of responsibility rested squarely on Sarah's shoulders. The pink rifle that had once been the subject of ridicule was about to face its ultimate test. Sarah's finger moved to the trigger as she prepared to attempt a shot that would either confirm her status as an exceptional marksman or reveal the limits of her abilities. The moment of truth had arrived. Sarah's breathing slowed to an almost meditative rhythm as she prepared for the most challenging shot of her life. The target at 900 meters seemed impossibly small through her scope, and the swirling wind conditions made the shot even more complex. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her that pressure was just another variable to be managed, like wind speed or bullet drop. The observing instructors gathered behind the squad, watching intently as Sarah made microscopic adjustments to her scope settings. Major Patricia Stone, the senior female officer at Paris Island, had arrived specifically to witness this culminating moment of the exercise. Word had spread throughout the command structure about the exceptional recruit and her distinctive pink rifle. Sarah's squad leader, Corporal Hayes, checked her watch nervously as precious minutes ticked away. The mission timeline was tight, and the assault element was already in position waiting for Sarah's shot to neutralize the distant threat. The success or failure of the entire exercise now rested on the shoulders of a recruit who had been training for less than 3 months. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target moving occasionally behind its concealment, providing brief glimpses of vulnerable areas. She would have only seconds to take her shot when the optimal opportunity presented itself. The patience her grandfather had taught her during countless hours at the range would be crucial in this moment. Tyler Harrison, positioned as part of the security element, found himself holding his breath as he watched Sarah's methodical preparation. His own shooting abilities had improved significantly under her informal coaching, and he now understood the incredible pressure she was facing. The recruit who had once dismissed her capabilities now prayed for her success. Marcus Thompson crouched nearby, ready to spot the impact of Sarah's shot and provide immediate feedback. His relationship with Sarah had evolved from student and teacher to trusted teammate, and he felt personally invested in her success. The confidence she had helped him build in his own shooting abilities made him appreciate the magnitude of what she was attempting. Sarah felt the familiar calm descend over her as she entered the focused mental state that her grandfather had taught her to cultivate. External pressures and distractions faded away, leaving only her rifle, the target, and the fundamental principles of marksmanship that had become second nature through years of practice. The pink rifle felt like an extension of her own body. The wind flags along the range showed a slight shift in direction, and Sarah made a final adjustment to compensate for the changing conditions. She had spent countless hours learning to read environmental factors, and her ability to adapt quickly to changing variables was about to be tested under the most demanding circumstances she had ever faced. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez observed from the command post, radio in hand, to report the exercise results to higher headquarters. He had trained hundreds of Marines during his career, but Sarah's combination of technical skill and mental toughness was unlike anything he had previously encountered. The success of this shot would validate everything he had reported about her exceptional abilities. Gunnery Sergeant Williams watched through powerful spotting scopes, ready to observe and evaluate every aspect of Sarah's technique. As the senior marksmanship instructor, she understood better than anyone the difficulty of the shot Sarah was attempting. Success would mark her as one of the most capable shooters ever to graduate from basic training. The target briefly appeared in Sarah's crosshairs, presenting the opportunity she had been waiting for. Her finger began the smooth, steady pressure on the trigger that she had practiced thousands of times. The shot would test not only her skills but also the quality of the custom rifle that had drawn so much attention and skepticism. Time seemed to slow as Sarah's rifle discharged, sending a precision bullet on its 900-meter journey toward the distant target. The recoil was managed perfectly, allowing her to maintain her sight picture and observe the bullet's impact through her scope. She knew immediately that the shot was good, but confirmation would come from the spotters and range officials. The silence that followed the shot was broken by Marcus Thompson's excited voice as he called out a confirmed hit through his spotting scope. The bullet had found its mark with devastating accuracy, achieving what many experienced Marines would consider an exceptional shot. Sarah had not only met the challenge but exceeded all expectations. Spontaneous cheers erupted from her squad members as they realized the implications of her successful shot. The mission could now proceed as planned, and their collective success was built on the foundation of Sarah's extraordinary marksmanship. The pink rifle had proven itself under the most demanding conditions imaginable. Major Stone approached Sarah's position with visible amazement at what she had just witnessed. In her 15 years of Marine Corps service, she had rarely seen such exceptional shooting from anyone, let alone a recruit still in basic training. Sarah's performance was setting new benchmarks for what could be achieved with proper training and natural talent. The exercise continued with Sarah providing overwatch support as her squad successfully completed their assault on the objective. Her precision fire had neutralized key threats and enabled her teammates to accomplish their mission with minimal risk. The tactical application of her marksmanship skills had proven as impressive as her pure shooting ability. As the day concluded and the exercise was declared successful, Sarah found herself surrounded by Marines seeking to congratulate her and learn from her techniques. The pink rifle that had once been a source of amusement was now viewed with genuine respect and admiration. Her weapon had become legendary for its precision and effectiveness. Colonel Mitchell, the commanding officer of the Scout Sniper School, arrived at Parris Island the following day specifically to meet with Sarah and evaluate her potential for advanced training. Her performance during the exercise had confirmed reports about her exceptional abilities and suggested that she might be suited for the most elite marksmanship programs in the Marine Corps. During their private meeting, Colonel Mitchell discussed opportunities that few Marines ever had the chance to consider. Sarah's combination of natural talent, extensive training, and proven performance under pressure had caught the attention of specialized units that were always seeking exceptional individuals. The pink rifle that had made her memorable had opened doors she had never imagined. Sarah's basic training was concluding on a note of triumph and recognition that exceeded her wildest expectations. The journey that had begun with skepticism and ridicule about her unconventional rifle was ending with respect, admiration, and opportunities for advancement that few Marines ever received. Her grandfather's patient teaching and her own dedication had combined to create something truly extraordinary. The final weeks of basic training flew by as Sarah prepared for graduation and her next assignment. The pink rifle that had defined her early experience at Parris Island had become a symbol of excellence and determination that inspired other Marines to question their own assumptions about capability and convention. Her story was already becoming part of the base's folklore, but Sarah's greatest challenge still lay ahead. The skills that had earned her recognition at Parris Island would soon be tested on a scale that would push both her abilities and her distinctive rifle to their absolute limits. The real test of her marksmanship was yet to come. 6 months after graduating from Parris Island as the honor graduate of her class, Sarah found herself at the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center in California, where she had been selected for the elite Scout Sniper School. The pink rifle that had once drawn ridicule was now carried with the respect accorded to a proven precision instrument. Her reputation had preceded her arrival, and fellow Marines knew they were training alongside someone exceptional. The Scout Sniper course was designed to push Marines beyond their perceived limits, testing not only shooting skills but also fieldcraft, stalking, observation, and the mental fortitude required for extended solo operations. Sarah thrived in the demanding environment, consistently ranking at the top of her class in both academic and practical exercises. Her distinctive rifle had become a source of motivation for other students who learned to respect capability over convention. During the final week of sniper training, an unprecedented opportunity arose that would test Sarah's abilities under real-world conditions. The commanding general of the Marine Corps Forces Pacific had arrived for an inspection and demonstration, bringing with him a challenge that had never been attempted in the history of the training center. The general, a decorated veteran of multiple combat deployments, had heard remarkable reports about a female Marine recruit who was redefining marksmanship standards throughout the Corps. He wanted to witness her capabilities firsthand and had arranged for a shooting demonstration that would test the absolute limits of both human skill and equipment technology. The challenge was daunting beyond imagination. A target placed at 6,000 meters, nearly 4 miles away, at the very edge of what physics and ballistics made theoretically possible. No Marine had ever attempted such an extreme long-range shot during training, and many experts considered it impossible given the countless variables that could affect bullet trajectory. Over such an enormous distance, Sarah studied the challenge. With the same methodical approach she had learned from her grandfather years earlier. The mathematics alone were staggering. Bullet drop, wind drift, atmospheric pressure, temperature, and humidity would all combine to create a shot that required perfect calculation and flawless execution. Her pink rifle would need to perform at the absolute peak of its capabilities. The entire training company gathered to witness the attempt, along with senior officers from across the Marine Corps who had traveled specifically to observe this historic moment. Television crews and military journalists were present to document what could become either a legendary achievement or a humbling reminder of human limitations. Sarah spent hours calculating the ballistic solution for the extreme range shot, consulting meteorological data, and using advanced computer programs to account for every possible variable. The bullet would travel for several seconds before reaching its target, during which time atmospheric conditions could change significantly. Success would require not just skill but also favorable conditions and extraordinary luck. The target was positioned on a distant hillside, barely visible even through the most powerful spotting scopes available. At 6,000 meters, the curvature of the Earth itself became a factor that had to be calculated into the shot solution. Sarah was attempting something that pushed the boundaries of what was considered physically possible with small arms fire. Colonel Mitchell, now serving as Sarah's mentor and advocate, stood beside her as she prepared for the shot. He had witnessed her exceptional abilities firsthand and believed that if anyone could achieve such an impossible feat, it would be the determined young Marine with the distinctive pink rifle that had become famous throughout the Corps. The weather conditions were as perfect as could reasonably be expected. With minimal wind and stable atmospheric pressure, Sarah had waited 3 days for optimal conditions, understanding that patience was often the difference between success and failure in precision shooting. Her grandfather's teachings about waiting for the right moment had never been more relevant. Sarah's breathing slowed to the deep, controlled rhythm that had become her signature during challenging shots. The pink rifle felt perfectly balanced in her hands as she made final adjustments to her scope settings, compensating for the extreme range and environmental factors. The weapon that had once been the subject of jokes was about to attempt something that would enter military history. The gathered Marines fell completely silent as Sarah settled into her shooting position. Even the most seasoned veterans understood they were witnessing something unprecedented, a moment that would be remembered and discussed for decades to come. The recruit who had faced skepticism about her unconventional rifle was now representing the pinnacle of Marine Corps marksmanship. Through her scope, Sarah could barely discern the target at the extreme distance, a small mark against the hillside that represented the culmination of everything she had learned and practiced. Her finger moved to the trigger with the same steady confidence that had carried her through every challenge she had faced since arriving at Paris Island. The shot broke cleanly, sending a precision bullet on an arcing trajectory that would take nearly 6 seconds to reach its distant target. Sarah maintained perfect follow-through, keeping her sight picture steady as the bullet traveled through the atmosphere on its historic journey. The success or failure of her attempt would not be known for several agonizing seconds. Spotters with powerful telescopes tracked the bullet's path, watching for the telltale dust cloud that would indicate impact near the target area. The silence stretched endlessly as everyone waited for confirmation of whether Sarah had achieved the impossible or fallen short of the unprecedented challenge she had accepted. Marcus Thompson, now a qualified Marine marksman himself thanks to Sarah's patient instruction, watched through spotting scopes with intense concentration. Tyler Harrison, who had become one of Sarah's strongest supporters, held his breath as he waited for the impact that would determine whether his former skepticism had been completely misplaced. Gunnery Sergeant Williams observed through the most powerful optics available, ready to make the official determination about the shot's effectiveness. As the senior marksmanship instructor, her assessment would carry the weight of authority and determine whether Sarah had achieved something truly historic. The bullet impact was confirmed with explosive cheers from the assembled Marines as spotters reported a direct hit on the 6,000-meter target. Sarah had achieved what many had considered impossible, demonstrating that exceptional skill combined with superior equipment could overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The pink rifle had made history. The celebration that followed was unlike anything witnessed at the training center. Sarah had not only succeeded in her impossible shot, but had done so with such precision that she had struck the center of the target at a distance that pushed the very limits of ballistic possibility. Her achievement would be studied and analyzed for years to come. General Harrison, the commanding officer who had proposed the challenge, personally congratulated Sarah on her historic achievement. He announced that her 6,000-meter shot would be officially recognized as a new Marine Corps record, and that her techniques would be incorporated into advanced marksmanship training programs. Throughout the service, the pink rifle that had once drawn laughter and skepticism was now displayed in the Marine Corps Museum as a symbol of how determination and skill could overcome prejudice and conventional thinking. Sarah's story became required reading for all Marine recruits, inspiring countless others to pursue excellence regardless of how others perceived their unconventional approaches. Sarah went on to serve with distinction in the Marine Corps, eventually becoming the chief instructor at the Scout Sniper School and mentoring a new generation of precision marksmen. Her legacy lived on in every Marine who learned that capability mattered more than conformity, and that sometimes the most unlikely weapons could achieve the most extraordinary results.